I'm gonna help you fall asleep a lot better than you ever have. I'm gonna give you all the details in this video. I'm gonna cover things that you can do, things that you can think, strategies and techniques to help you fall asleep. And then at the end, I will let you know if there are certain food strategies that you can use in order to help you fall asleep, including some supplements. So first of all, many people are deprived of sleep. It is insane. I personally have had trouble falling asleep, where you start to go down this rabbit hole where each and every night you're having more and more difficulty falling asleep. And it seems as though the harder you try, the worse it gets. The big problem with this is that when we sleep, certain hormones are stimulated during that deep, rapid eye movement sleep, such as growth hormone, testosterone. So if you're not sleeping, what ends up happening, at least as a man, your testosterone starts to decrease. You start to have less recovery. If you're working out trying to build muscle, or you're exercising hard, you're not going to recover the next day. They say that the number one thing that you can do to recover from a workout isn't protein, it isn't carbohydrates, it isn't stretching, it isn't a ice bath or cold water immersion, it's sleep. The greater sleep you get, the more your body recovers. In addition to that, things like blood sugar regulation, these are affected by sleep. The problem is that if you're not sleeping, none of these things are happening. And day after day, it starts to accumulate. That's important. So first, let's talk about some very simple things that you could do that cost no money whatsoever. Number one, you can make sure that the room is cool. This is important because if you've ever had a night where it's just blistering hot outside and it's stuffy in your room and you're sweating, you're not falling asleep. Unfortunately, sometimes we have no control over this, but if you can control it, make sure that the room is about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. This is approximately the best temperature. Too much cold keeps you awake, too much heat keeps you awake, but there's an optimal temperature where most people have an easier time falling asleep. So around 65 degrees. I personally like it at 60, but if you search the internet, it gives you a range, but 65 degrees is a good goal. You'll find that when it's cool, you feel much better under the blankets. You feel like a comfort is being bestowed upon you by being under those blankets. Second, the blanket that you have. Many people, you'll find, have a difficult time sleeping. You can't sleep with your arms out like this because your brain feels exposed. Thus, it's going to keep you awake. So having a nice blanket, particularly a heavy blanket, a comforter, multiple layers of blankets. You can also get a weighted blanket. I will put a link down below from an Amazon. Maybe I'll find you a weighted blanket. I got one at a local store, and I could tell you it was game-changing because that weighted blanket gives you a feeling of security, especially when it keeps you toasty in the cold temperature of the room. So blankets are very important. Now let's talk about some mental strategies that you can do. Number one, the biggest trouble that people have, and I have this too, is you turn out the lights and all of a sudden, boom, your eyes are open. You're counting sheep, you're looking at the ceiling, you're solving all the problems of the world and all your problems. This is a challenge. Very often, your eyes are open because there's some type of light penetrating the window or your computer screen, something like that, or light coming underneath the door from downstairs. You want to make sure you have the room blackened as much as possible. So blackout shades on the windows, make sure no lights are in the house that could be penetrating through the doorway. We actually had, we didn't realize it, was our modem from our computer had a flashing red light. And this is what it felt like all night. And I would sit there, and even though my eyes were closed, my brain sensed this flashing red light. Finally, we just put some electrical tape over it, and it's harder to think when you can't see in front of your face. But mentally, what ends up happening is your brain starts working on all the problems you have during the course of a day. You can't think about things. You have to have a clear mind. And you'll have to find your own mantra, but I've found mine. And mine is, I'll solve it tomorrow. So as soon as a thought enters my mind, I realize that I'm going to start chewing through this. Don't think about it. You simply have to say, okay, that's a problem. I'll solve it tomorrow. How many times have you woken up in the middle of the night going, I figured it out? Very seldom. 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to figure out how to solve a problem. Trust me, your subconscious mind is going to be thinking about these problems. You can't let your conscious mind think about these problems. So what you're going to need to do, what I've done, and maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't, is to say, I'll solve it tomorrow. I'll think about it tomorrow, not right now. The second thing that I do is I do deep breathing exercises. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Super deep, slow, controlled breathing, so that I start focusing on the breathing rather than all my problems. This is helpful because your brain, or at least the male brain, the biologically male brain, can only think of one thing at a time. Sorry, but at least for me, that's the thing. I can't multitask like my wife. She could think of 20 different things all at the same time. I can only think of one thing at a time. So if I'm focusing on my breathing, I'm not focusing on my problems. That is very helpful. So doing deep breathing exercises helps you relax. It lowers your blood pressure. And thus, when your blood pressure is lower, it's lower because you stimulated the parasympathetic nervous system, and the deep breathing creates a situation where your body starts producing more nitric oxide, which is a gas inside the blood vessels that helps relax and dilate the blood vessels, that allows blood to get to all the body parts and relax. It starts to work that way. In addition to that, when you are having trouble and you just can't stop thinking about your problems, you can always write down your problems and put them at the bedside and realize, okay, I'll let my subconscious mind think about it, but I'm not going to consciously think about it. Because your subconscious mind is a lot smarter than your conscious mind. Now let's talk about nutrition. Number 1, don't eat right before bed. That is a no-no. Anytime you eat before you go to bed, your brain is going to be consciously trying to digest the food, or subconsciously. But you're going to have a hard time going to bed right after eating. In addition to that, if you eat a high carbohydrate meal, very often you get an insulin spike, which is going to reduce the chances of you falling asleep. So the best type of diet that you can have is one where you have a little bit of food, a little bit of protein, a little bit of fat, a little bit of carbohydrates. You don't have to eat 2,000 calories at dinner. In fact, dinner should be the smallest meal of all the meals that you eat throughout the day. If you eat a big meal and then try to go to bed, you're going to have a difficult time. If you eat a small meal 3 hours before you go to bed, you're going to have a much easier time. Now, I mentioned the combination of proteins and fats and carbohydrates. Yes, too much of one thing is not good. That's why a balanced meal is probably the best choice, depending on your goals for if you're trying to lose weight or if you're trying to recover from workouts. that type of thing. So it's going to be an individual thing. Lastly, there are certain nutrients that help us fall asleep. At the end of the video, I will give you some links that you can look down below and see if they would be right for you. But they're usually a combination of some amino acids and magnesium that help you fall asleep. Those things you can take an hour before bedtime, and they will cause a relaxation to where your nervous system just gets calmer and you're gonna have an easier time falling asleep. But before I do that, let me cover some things that are not really easily categorized that you probably haven't thought of. Is number one, if you're not comfortable, you're not gonna fall asleep. Everybody's tried to fall asleep on the couch or when you are in the backyard doing a camp out and you're sleeping on the grass or the ground, very uncomfortable. If your bed is not comfortable, if your pillow's not comfortable, this should be obvious. You should get some of those products that help you become comfortable. Other than watching my videos, stop watching YouTube. Stop being on Instagram. Stop being on Facebook. Actually, that's kind of silly. Does Facebook even exist anymore? Do people use Facebook? I have a Facebook. I haven't looked at it in probably a year. It's just a bunch of advertising. But nonetheless, get off social media, get off the computer at least an hour before you go to bed. As far as habits, try to go to bed at the same time every day, try to wake up every day. One of the problems that people have is that they have different schedules on weekends than they do weekdays. If you wake up early every day at the same time, do it every day no matter what, you'll find that you'll have an easier time sleeping. So now let's talk about some of those supplements. Here's one that I really like called Sleep Breakthrough. This is awesome stuff. I'll put a link down below in the description and you could look at the ingredients and see what's in there. Very often what I'll do is I'll combine this with magnesium because I like to take magnesium at nighttime. It helps me sleep. One of the things about magnesium that's interesting is we don't get enough of it in food. And even if we try to eat the proper foods, the soil doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it as much as it used to, so you gotta buy organic, and then you really don't know the numbers. But I find that if I take a magnesium supplement in addition to this, man, it's awesome. So this turns out blue. You pour just 2 scoops into like 4 ounces of water and drink it at nighttime, about an hour before you go to bed. And it totally relaxes you, helps you sleep. You may want to look at the ingredients and see if it's right for you, but I'll put the link down below, and of course, you get a discount code. Guess what? Look at the garage. It still looks bad, but it's not as bad. All our stuff was literally to the ceiling. So they're working on the house. We're almost finished. We're kind of moved in, but you know, they're still working on it, and who knows how long it'll take. So thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff that Facebook or YouTube, YouTube wants you to do. And if you want to consult me, we do phone and Zoom consultations. All my information is down in the description if you want to do that. No pressure or anything like that. In addition to that, we also have, there's a little join button at the bottom. And you can join, there's 3 tiers to the videos, and you can get, in addition to the normal videos that I do, there's some extra bonuses if you want to look at those and help support the channel. I do appreciate it.